Hello and welcome to Cannabis Common Sense. This is a program that's about the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, an initiative petition to tax and regulate the sales of marijuana here in the state of Oregon. The Oregon Cannabis Tax Act is an initiative petition sponsored by our political committee, Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp. I'm Paul Stanford, and I'm one of the three chief petitioners, and I'd like to explain several of the aspects of the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act here in Oregon. Our initiative will tax and regulate the sales of marijuana through Oregon's 280 state liquor stores. You know, through the state liquor stores, the age limit is strictly enforced, so only people over the age of 21 will be purchasing it. The Oregon Cannabis Tax Act will allow doctors to prescribe marijuana to patients through pharmacies, so that people who need marijuana when they're sick or ill for various ailments, everything from glaucoma and to combat the AIDS wasting syndrome, to fighting the effects of chemotherapy in relation to its use to stop cancer. Marijuana helps in all of those cases. It will also allow farmers here in Oregon to grow hemp for fiber, protein, and oil, and make everything from textiles and rope to paper, and from food to energy. We believe that the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, by legalizing industrial hemp, will create thousands of sustainable jobs right here in our state. We urge you to help us with the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. This is our petition, and it will, as I said, tax and regulate the sales of marijuana, and we urge you to call our office at 235-4606, that's 235-4606, and help us put this issue on the ballot. You know, our petition's currently in circulation. We have until July of 1998 to gather enough signatures to put this issue on the ballot. We need your help, so give us a call at 235-4606 and help put the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act on the ballot. The Oregon Cannabis Tax Act will raise hundreds of millions of dollars in state revenue. 90% of that money will go into the state general funds to lower the tax burden on us all. The other 10% is split among 8% for drug abuse treatment programs, so that people who have substance abuse problems with alcohol or other drugs can get the help they need when they need it. Currently, about 90% of those people are turned away. The Oregon Cannabis Tax Act will increase funding for people looking for help with substance abuse problems by a factor of at least 10 and perhaps as much as 30. 1% of the proceeds from the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act will go to create a educational program for kids in grade schools and secondary schools, so that they can find out the real dangers that substance abuse might pose to their development. The final 1% would go into creating a state agriculture committee that would promote Oregon hemp fiber, protein, and oil. That committee would be funded by the proceeds from the sales of marijuana. You know, marijuana is useful as a medicine. In fact, the oldest medical text, the Ankara Veda from north central India, about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, listed marijuana as one of the primary medicines. And today, a lot of research has been done around the world that proves that cannabis and various constituents in marijuana are useful in treating various medical ailments. One of those agents in cannabis is tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, that's THC. And THC has been synthesized and isolated in a capsule form called Marinol, or technically Drabanol. That product is useful and it's the main psychoactive product in cannabis. It's useful in stimulating appetite, but it's not the only active substance in cannabis. There's also CBD, or cannabidiol. And cannabidiol is useful for treating spasms. It's an antispastic agent. And that's completely separate use from THC. That's why marijuana in its vegetable form is useful for MS patients with multiple sclerosis, because it helps stop their spasms and helps them control that. There's also another pharmaceutically active substance in cannabis that isn't psychoactive at all, and that's cannabichromine, or CBC. Cannabichromine is an anti-inflammatory agent, which is why cannabis in its raw vegetable form is useful for arthritis and any other inflammation of the joints or problems along that line. So cannabis is a very useful medicine with several different medicinal compounds. And the pill form, THC or Marinol, is not completely an effective medicine for everything that cannabis can treat. You know, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act will allow doctors to prescribe cannabis through pharmacies, and that will be at cost. So the cost of medical cannabis will be just a few pennies on the dollar compared to the recreational cannabis. The cannabis sold in the state liquor store system to adults over the age of 21 will be taxed, and that money, the revenue from that tax, will go to the state general fund and to help with drug education and drug treatment. But the medical cannabis won't be taxed. In fact, adults or any sick person would be allowed to grow their own. You know, currently the THC pills, which once again only have one active agent from cannabis, those THC pills are $6 each. For a person who has AIDS or multiple sclerosis that has to take them regularly, that's $30,000 a year in just medicine costs. Now, if that cannabis was grown commercially, without the black market in place, the way it has inflated the prices today, the amount of money that would be needed for that person's medicine for an entire year would be about $50, compared to the $30,000 just using THC Marinol pills. You know, for the people who are undergoing chemotherapy, they have violent nausea for over a week. For the people who have the AIDS wasting syndrome or have multiple sclerosis and can't keep down those $6 pills, sometimes they'll take one pill and they'll throw it up 2 or 3 times before they can keep it down. Well, and it takes up to an hour and a half to go into effect. So they take this pill, they throw it up a couple times, finally they keep one down, and then it goes into effect about an hour and a half later. And that's at $6 a pill. About a nickel's worth of cannabis, 1 or 2 deep inhalations, and it acts instantaneously. The war on drugs is not about drugs at all. The war on drugs is about money and the continued centralization of economic and political control. The war on drugs continues to centralize economic control. We see huge amounts of money just in the Marinol industry going to pharmaceutical companies instead of going out to farmers and out to decentralized sources to spread the wealth to us all. The pharmaceutical company has a huge interest in keeping this Marinol and the synthetic pharmaceutical product out there. You can see at $30,000 a year, let's say there are 1,000 people here in the Portland area alone, and that's probably an underestimate, that need to take that. And so that right there is $30 million a year, just from that one market here in Portland. Multiply that by the rest of the United States, and you can see why the pharmaceutical industry is against the sales of marijuana as a medicine. They can't make the money off of it that they can off these synthetic drugs. And the synthetic drugs have side effects that the organic ones don't. You know, marijuana has never in human history ever caused a lethal overdose. We see the effects of alcohol. We see the effects of Valium. We see the effects of many other pharmaceutical drugs and how many thousands of people die each year here in the United States from the use of pharmaceutical drugs, where marijuana has not caused a single lethal overdose in recorded history. Marijuana, in fact, is one of the safest drugs known to man. There's an article from the Lancet, which is one of Britain's oldest medical magazines. The Lancet has been published for over 400 years. It's the oldest English language medical text. And in their editorial from last November of 1995, just a little over a year ago, they said in their editorial, Deglamorizing Cannabis, that the use of cannabis, the smoking of cannabis, even long-term, is not harmful to health. Now, you know, many people tell us that marijuana is a dangerous drug, but here we have the oldest peer-reviewed medical journal in the world saying that the smoking of cannabis, even long-term, is not harmful to health. Why do these doctors say this when the industries and people who control our economic and political systems here in the United States tell us differently? They have an economic incentive to do so, and we want to stop that. We want to put economic control back where it belongs. You know, we think that the government has abdicated its responsibility to control this market. The government has a responsibility to control the sales of marijuana, and we think the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act will do that. It will force the government to take control back. Currently, they've abdicated control to the black market. The people in the black market who are controlling it, outside of a few small number of people at the top who are making the most money, people who control it by and large are children and substance abusers. We want to take control out of the hands of kids and substance abusers and put it back in the liquor stores so the government can control the sales and make certain that it's only going to those over the age of 21. You know, currently, by putting children and substance abusers in control of the market, we put these drugs in the hands of kids who are selling them in the classrooms. If we look back at alcohol prohibition, we see that during alcohol prohibition, kids were selling gin, whiskey, rum. They were selling these various products in the schools. In fact, back during alcohol prohibition from 1917 to 1933, entire schools closed down for a day because everybody in the school was drunk. Well, that doesn't happen today, but we do see the effects of weapons and fighting over control of the markets for these illegal drugs. We think that marijuana in the black market is dangerous for our youth. In fact, you know, we think that marijuana is not a gateway drug, that in fact it's a gateway to the black market. And this article in the British Medical Journal from December of 1995, just a year ago, shows how that in fact is the case. In their article called "The War on Drugs, Prohibition Isn't Working, Some Legalization Will Help," they said that the use of marijuana by minors in the Netherlands is roughly less than a fifth what it is here in the United States. The thing that's amazing about that is that in the Netherlands, they allow the sales of marijuana to anyone over the age of 16 through the Netherlands coffee shops. Here in the United States, marijuana is completely prohibited. In the Netherlands, since 1976, they've allowed the sales of marijuana to anyone over the age of 16. But the use of marijuana by those between the ages of 17 and 18 is less than 1/5, less than 20% what it is here in the United States, where it's completely prohibited. Marijuana isn't the gateway drug, but marijuana prohibition is the gateway to the black market. We believe by taking marijuana out of the black market and letting the government control its sales, that the use of marijuana will decline and the use of all other drugs will decline as well. This same British Medical Journal article says that the use of hard drugs, such as cocaine and heroin, by minors in the Netherlands is less than 1/10 what it is here in the United States, less than 10%. So clearly what the Dutch are doing is working, and we want Oregon to emulate that policy. You know, just in the last few months, in this November, the state of California passed Proposition 215. Proposition 215 has allowed patients in California to use marijuana to combat various illnesses, including glaucoma, for which it lowers the intraocular pressure, thereby saving people's eyesight, for the wasting syndrome associated with AIDS or cancer chemotherapy, In fact, a study in the Journal of Clinical Oncology, a cancer publication, they surveyed all oncologists, cancer doctors here in the United States. They found that 42% of all oncologists had recommended marijuana to their patients, even though it's illegal. And 48% of those physicians said that they would recommend marijuana if, in fact, it was medicinally available. And 56% of them said that they thought marijuana was useful medication to combat the side effects from chemotherapy to treat AIDS. You know, currently, here in the United States, we have a system where medical patients are arrested for marijuana. We should ask ourselves this question: who should decide what medicine is best for a patient? Should it be the patients? Should it be the doctors who are deciding what medicine is good for patients? Or should it be law enforcement? Today, we put law enforcement in charge of that. In fact, in an article from the San Francisco Journal just last week, as we tape this show in January, perhaps a little bit later as it's being shown, they just reopened the Cannabis Buyers Club in San Francisco because of Proposition 215. You know, the Attorney General in the state of California, Dan Lundgren, went in with hundreds of officers and closed down the Cannabis Buyers Club last September. He did that to send a political message to try to stop the passage of Proposition 215. Well, recently, a court judge issued an injunction to stop the closure of the Buyers Club. And the Buyers Club is reopened. And now they are legally, with the court's blessing, selling cannabis to patients who have a medical need. You know, here in Oregon, there are some brave people who are operating a Buyers Club to help patients that have a doctor's order. We think that that shouldn't be that way. In fact, there's a legislator here in Portland, in the state legislature, as our Oregon legislative session starts, George Amy, and his last name is spelled E-I-G-H-M-E-Y. George Amy is introducing a medical bill, so the legislature might enact a medicinal cannabis provision so that patients can receive the cannabis they need. In fact, back in California, when they passed Prop 215, one of the things that influenced them was Doonesbury. Gary Trudeau, in his Doonesbury comic strip, began to lambaste the Attorney General, Dan Lundgren. And Dan Lundgren actually responded and asked that somehow the newspaper be made to stop putting out Doonesbury's cartoon. You know, Bill Clinton is lambasted, as are many politicians, by Doonesbury and various cartoonists. Very few of them ever pay attention and say to stop. But Dan Lundgren actually said that they should stop printing the Doonesbury cartoon. And one of his spokesperson even went so far as to say that they think they should arrest the cartoon characters in Doonesbury. Well, that just shows the extent to which the drug warriors will go to fight this war, because to them, it's not an issue about drugs, it's an issue about money. The officers who are benefiting from this make a lot of money. They have a lot of power. They seize a lot of objects that the government sells and brings more money to the government's coffers. Here in Portland, when they arrest someone, they'll often only prosecute people who have equity in their home. And they will seize that equity so that they can, based on just a few small plants in a person's home, they can come in and seize their equity and their life savings. And the people count themselves lucky if they're not put in jail. You know, a good percentage of these people are doing this for medical need. And we need to allow these people to have access to cannabis. Our initiative, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, will do that. We need your help in getting signatures on this. I urge you to give us a call. Come in. get our petitions. Let us mail them to you. Somehow, get hold of these petitions and get signatures for us. At the very least, get your own signature and send it back to us. Get your friend's signature. Give us a call to do that at 235-4606. That's 235-4606. If it's not your standard office hours, we have voicemail hooked up to that can take many messages. We urge you to give us a call and ask us to send you our petitions today to 235-4606. The decriminalization and regulation, taxation of marijuana has been receiving a lot of publicity lately. For instance, here is the cover of Time magazine, where they're talking about the increased use and increased awareness of cannabis. In fact, they have a Doonesbury cartoon on there. I'm sure the Attorney General of California, Dan Lundgren, doesn't like that too much. But you can see that it is getting more and more publicity. And so we're here to try to urge you to help the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. If you can, call us and get our petitions. We'd be happy to send them to you. Or you could come down to one of our booths. We have booths at the Saturday Market, the Lloyd Center on occasion. In fact, we could use your help to staff our booths or to staff our office. Just give us a call and get hooked in and help us put this important issue on the ballot. There's another magazine here, The Nation, a progressive magazine with a long history here in the United States. And you can see that they say the war is over and drugs win. The drug war is a colossal failure of unprecedented proportions. It's been fought for an incredibly long time at the cost of billions and billions of dollars. And it's a failure. We want to stop that failure. We want to lower the costs associated with enforcing these crazy laws. You know, we've been tracking convictions and incarcerations here in the state of Oregon. Been tracking them over about a period of a year and a half. We found that a little bit more than 55% of all convictions and incarcerations in the penitentiary here in the state of Oregon are for marijuana, are for drugs. 55% of those. And half of those, or a little bit more than 25%, are just for marijuana alone. The costs associated with this are enormous. It costs tens of thousands of dollars to incarcerate these people every year. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to arrest them, take them through the court process, and prosecute them. Then we have to spend millions and even billions of dollars to build new prisons the way we're doing here in the state of Oregon. You know, we're going to increase our prison population according to the newspaper, the Oregonian, over the next 10 years. From an article on March 30th of 1996, the prison population will increase by a factor of 158% in the next 10 years. You know, we already have more people in prison per capita than any other country in the history of the world. We have more people in prison than South Africa had under apartheid. We have more people in prison than the Soviet Union had under communism. They say it isn't done yet. The rate of incarceration continues to increase at an ever-quickening pace. We urge you to write your representative. We have their addresses right here on the screen. We urge you to write to your representative. Write to your local newspapers. For every one of you that writes, we know there are 100 of you that wish you could write and wish you could do that. We urge you to take up your pen, the most powerful weapon of all. We urge you to pick up your pen and write your legislator and to write into us and help us change these terrible laws and the impact they're having on our society. We can do that through the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. Excuse me. The Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, once again, will tax and regulate the sales of marijuana to adults in Oregon state liquor stores, where the age limit of 21 is strictly enforced. It will raise hundreds and millions of dollars in revenue. In addition to all the government savings, there'll be hundreds and millions of new dollars pouring in to our state general fund. and that will lower the tax burden on us all. It will fund drug treatment programs so that the alcoholics and addicts can get the help they need. It will fund drug education programs to warn kids about the real dangers that substance abuse might pose to their development. It will fund a state agriculture committee that will promote Oregon hemp fiber, protein, and oil, creating thousands of ecologically sustainable jobs and helping the state of Oregon be on the cutting edge of environmentally sustainable development. It will allow Oregon doctors to prescribe cannabis through pharmacies at cost so that sick people can get the cannabis they need to help their health and help them survive. It will allow farmers to have a valuable new crop that will help save small family farms and help the rural economies throughout the state of Oregon. We'll take what is indisputably the largest cash crop in our state. It perhaps is the largest industry, even in the black market today with it illegal, the largest industry in the state. You know, you can find out more about the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act by looking at our website. Our website address is here on the screen. It's www.crrh.org. That's CRRH, that's the name of our political committee, Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp. Or you can write us an email message at our address, octa@crrh.org. We need your help. You know, I urge you, in fact, to not wait, to pick up the phone right now, to give us a call. Let us send you these petitions. With your help, you know, we can put this important issue on the ballot. We want to be able to stop the massive deforestation that's happening across our planet and create sustainable economic opportunities by allowing farmers to grow industrial hemp for paper use. We want to stop the excessive dependence on cotton, which is the most pollution-intensive crop. Most people don't know that 30% of all the pesticides in the world are created to go on the cotton crop. Hemp can grow without any pesticides and produces many times more biomass. Give us a call right now at 235-4606. That's 235-4606. We need you to call. We need you to contact us. We hope that you will get our petition. We hope you'll sign it and get your friends to sign it and get it back to us as soon as possible. You know, I'd like to thank you for watching tonight. This has been Cannabis Common Sense. I'd like to thank our camera crew, Lanny Swerlo, Mike, Mark, the other people that have come down here to help us tonight. And I'd like to thank you for tuning in and watching. We urge you once again to give our campaign a call. Help us tax and regulate the sales of marijuana and educate people about the real benefits that can be had by instituting industrial hemp and medical hemp, and how we can turn our economy around and create environmentally sustainable jobs by putting Oregon on the cutting edge of that development. Thanks for watching.